Okay, let's dive right into this. Have you ever thought about how a single, simple prayer made literally thousands of years ago could completely alter the entire trajectory of human civilization? Well, today we are unpacking a really fascinating explainer that challenges pretty much everything we think we know about ancient history, prophecy, and religious identity.
So get ready for this, because we're going to start with a big question. Were Moses and Jesus actually Muslims? Now I know, depending on your background, your immediate reaction might be to pause and say, wait, what? But to truly understand the answer to this, we actually have to drop our modern definitions for a minute. We need to travel way back, thousands of years, to a barren, empty valley in ancient Mecca.
Just picture this scene for a second. A father and son, Abraham and Ishmael, are standing together out there in the harsh desert heat, raising the heavy stone foundations of the Kaaba. And you know, what's really amazing here isn't just the physical structure they were building, it's what they didn't do. They weren't out there praying for massive wealth or, powerful empires. Instead, they made this deeply intimate prayer that would literally echo forward through all of humanity.
Now, what's really interesting about this part of the story is the exact wording of that prayer. They prayed, "Our Lord, make us Muslims in submission to you, and from our descendants a nation submitted to you." This is absolutely crucial. They are actively asking God to make them submitters, and incredibly, they specifically asked for this exact same state of submission for all of their next generations. They wanted that unbroken line. But we really need to ask, what did the word Muslim actually mean in this ancient context? If we look at the etymology, it's actually super simple. It just means one who submits to God, right? Abraham wasn't asking for some future religious label or a political faction. That didn't even exist yet. He was asking for the literal spiritual act of complete and utter submission to God.
So the crucial point is how this fundamentally reframes all the prophets who followed him. Think about major figures like Jacob, Moses, and Jesus, because historical labels like Jew and Christian actually appeared long after these men lived. So in the sight of God, they were not Jews or Christians. The Islamic revelation identifies them purely by their actions. And those actions? They were Muslims. They were submitters to God. That was their true, defining identity.
And the source text is incredibly direct about this. The Quran explicitly states that Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but rather someone entirely devoted to God in submission, a Muslim. The really profound implication here is that sure, subsequent prophets brought different laws to different communities at different times, but they all carried the exact same underlying message: worship and submit to God alone.
And this brilliantly illustrates one continuous, unbroken historical message. Think about it like a giant timeline. Thousands of years ago, Abraham and Ishmael lay the foundation. Then, for centuries, Isaac's lineage produces prophets calling people to God. Then, centuries later, Ishmael's lineage takes up the mantle. It completely rejects the whole idea of separate, competing religions. Instead, it frames prophets like Moses and Jesus as vital, interconnected links in one unbreakable chain of Muslims. But that day out in the desert, it didn't end there. Abraham and Ishmael actually made a second request. They prayed for God to send a messenger from among their own people. And according to Islamic belief, this specific prayer kind of lay dormant, almost like a seed waiting to sprout, until it was finally answered centuries later, when a final messenger emerged from Ishmael's descendants. That messenger was Muhammad. Okay, let's move forward and see how this builds right into our present day, because the effects of that ancient prayer are literally rippling through the modern world. The Kaaba didn't just survive the elements, it became a massive global epicenter of worship. Every single year, millions of people perform the Hajj pilgrimage. They're literally walking right where Abraham walked. They reenact Hagar's frantic search for water, offer animal sacrifices honoring Abraham's total obedience, and endlessly circle the exact structure a father and son rebuilt in an empty desert all those years ago. It's mind-blowing when you really think about it. So it all started with a simple prayer for submission, right? For generations that hadn't even been born yet. And it leaves us with this huge question to ponder. How does redefining one single word, understanding Muslim not as a modern demographic, but as the timeless, active state of submitting to God, how does that change our entire understanding of human history? It's a completely different lens, one that unites thousands of years of prophecy into one shared, incredible legacy.
أم تقولون إن إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق ويعقوب والأسباط كانوا هودا أو نصارى قل أأنتم أعلم أم الله ومن أظلم ممن كتم شهادة عنده من الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون